Hello. Tonight we're going to talk about the emotional guidance system. We've already done a video on mirror reflection and that's part of the emotional guidance system, and you can look for that. But I want a separate video that gives the entire emotional guidance system. Before we come in, we know we're not coming in by ourselves. We're coming in with our inner being, and we're coming in with a very good emotional guidance system. So, the first part of the emotional guidance system is the feeling feedback. When you think a thought, your inner being is also thinking about the same subject that you're thinking about. So you have your perception and your inner being has their perception. When you, with your thought, are different, very different from the thought that your inner being's thinking, there's a gap there. And because there's a gap, you're out of alignment. You understand, if you were in alignment, your thoughts would match up. What you speak, what you say, what you think, that's alignment. When it's right there with your inner being, and it feels good. To be in alignment feels really good. So the feeling feedback you get, if it's good, you know, boy, my inner being's thinking this same thing about this subject. When you're misaligned, the feeling feedback is not feeling so good. That's the feedback. That's the first part of the emotional guidance system. So, when you have a negative feeling, it's not because your lover left or your boss told you off or your boss fired you. You had an argument with your significant other. None of that has to do with why you feel bad. The only reason you ever feel bad is because you're not looking at the situation, thinking, talking about it like Source does. So, what does that mean? That means your emotions are indicators of your point of attraction. We're a magnet. We get everything according to our point of attraction, or our grid, same word. So, your emotions also reflect your relationship with Source. When you're aligned, you feel really good. And nothing else has to do with alignment except your perception of the situation. What you think, what you feel about that situation. Because Source has their own thoughts. Our job is alignment. So, what does that mean? That means when you're focused on what Source is focused on, you feel joy. When not, you feel disempowered. All the emotions that there are somewhere between disempowerment and joy. So, in other words, your emotions are telling you, this feeling feedback are telling you how close you are to Source or how far away. The second part of the emotional guidance system is the mirror reflection. There's a separate video on that. And I just want to say this about mirror reflection. It's a very bitter pill to swallow sometimes, because we cannot believe that we ourselves are responsible for giving ourselves so much misery. We'd rather blame it on somebody else. But once you understand that, there's great freedom for you. And it takes all the victim out of victimhood. So when you look at how you've created certain situations in your life, you're just going to laugh. Because really, it's very hilarious what we do. Now let's talk about evoking. Evoking and mirror reflection go hand in hand. The others that are mirror reflectors, that are not separate people, but what we think are separate people and are just mirrors, they reflect to us back because we evoke it from them. In other words, we pull the words and the behaviors from the other person. The things that we need in order to increase our own alignment with Source, to show us very plainly what we are ourselves creating. You may want to back this up and replay it because that's very important. We're the ones that evoke, pull this out of the other person to give us the mirror reflection. The last thing I want to mention here is a rendezvous with somebody who has their own stuff going on. Abraham has a quote, people will love you, people will hate you, and it has nothing to do with you. Well, people sometimes say to me, Patti, that's not my stuff, that's their stuff. Well, there's a little tiny chance that it's not your stuff. Mostly it's almost always your stuff. But in the rare times that it is their stuff, you're still responsible for that rendezvous. In other words, if you're on a high-flying disc, you cannot rendezvous with someone who's on a lower disc. So if somebody's giving you grief and they're down here, if you were up here, you couldn't rendezvous with that. You cannot physically see anything that's not in your own vibration. So you have to take responsibility for that rendezvous. Now, we don't come into physical alone. We have our inner beings, we have a cadre of non-physical available to us, and everybody's guiding us, talking to us 24/7. We have all the guidance available to us that we can use, but we have to be in the receptive mode to hear that. In other words, we have to be on the same vibration that they are on. We have to be close to their vibration, which is a pure positive energy, in order to hear. So, people ask, are we puppets of non-physical? Absolutely not. We are the choosers. We choose whatever we want, and our inner being gives us that feeling feedback to guide us. And when we use that feedback, we can make most any situation a pleasurable one. Any situation. And that's the reason we're so sensitive, to be sensitive to our alignment to Source, and that's the ultimate guidance that we get from Source. That's why there are really no wrong decisions when Abraham says you can't get it wrong. You can't get it wrong because if you listen to the feeling feedback, your emotional guidance system, you can do well in any situation. That's all about the emotional guidance system. Use it often. It will benefit you. Go forth and prosper.